What's up, guys? We're back. I'm George Mossey. I'm here with my co-host, David Baxter. So last night, 90 Day Fiance, Before the 90 Days, Season 5, Episode 12 aired. This is part 2 of the podcast. We're going to talk about two people last night that we saw kind of deteriorate before our eyes. So Mike and Jimena. So Jimena has revealed to Mike finally that she doesn't, I don't want to say she doesn't love him, because she took that back. She said, I'm not in love with you. I feel like it's probably both. But she finally was honest about that. I mean, the way that she always side-eyed him, I kind of always suspected that she didn't really love him, and it was more so a tolerance. And at this point, the tolerance seems to be wearing off.
I feel a little weird about the I'm in love with you, but I'm not in love with you line, just because it's such a high school thing. You're either in the relationship or you're not.
Oh, right. When he got there the first time, she definitely, if it was all an act, I want to say that, if it was all an act, she should have gotten an Oscar for her first performance on the first trip. She made a lot of people believe, not me, I only halfway believed it, but a lot of people did believe that she was in it and she wanted to marry him. And when he proposed to her, she cried. You know, she said it was beautiful. And so she did act in the first part of it. The second trip, it's almost like she had checked out of the relationship before he got there. And I think it has a lot to do with the breast augmentation and liposurgery that he refuses to pay for. And I feel like if he would have landed on that trip and said yes and yes to those two surgeries, I feel like the tolerance and the acting would have continued in the way it did on the first trip. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that she wants space in the relationship, and that's the space between a C cup and a double D cup.
Oh my gosh, I didn't think of it like that. That's a lot of space too. And that, I feel like, in her defense, most brides want to fill out their dress, and she feels like she can't do that. But at the same time, she said, if you want to marry me, you have to buy the boobs before the dress. And I guess that does make sense, because you'd have to know what size the boobs are to buy the dress. So maybe she's making more sense than I realize. So they decide to use that. Mike's friend John has a fiance named Nelsie. She's a translator because she's bilingual. They decide to use her to try to get between the translation errors and the gaps in their conversation. This turns out horribly. Jimena talks to Nelsie and tells her basically, I can't stand him. He watches me when I sleep. He's annoying. He follows me around. He's weird. And she even tells her that when I met Mike, I stopped working and I took money from him, and I don't feel bad for it. And I felt like the way that this conversation went, it kind of sealed the deal. This relationship has to end, because now that Mike's friends, who have always been on the outside, they've only known what Mike has given them, the information that he's given them. Now that they see the type of relationship this is, I don't think anyone is going to stand by and let him continue this. I feel like if anything, they're going to be on the next plane there to get him.
Well, I also don't know if this is a conscious effort on Jimena's part, because I feel like if she's in the relationship for the money, for the plastic surgery, and honestly, if that's her end goal, all the power to her. But you don't tell the person who's paying for everything that you're creepy and you're ugly and you're disgusting and you smell and you do this, because that's going to say, all right, I'm going to go find somebody else who's going to put up with my burping and farting and all of that stuff. So I feel that she's ready for it to end. But I don't know if she herself knows that she's ready for it to end.
Okay, I see what you're saying. She's checked out, but she might not be ready for the money to stop coming in, but she's checked out with the tolerance of him. Like, it was easier when he was in New York and the money was coming in, because there was no tolerance level to deal with. And I think him showing up for the second time, especially this time, almost unannounced, I think that it really hit her like, I can't physically deal with this person in my life, because for the longest time, he wasn't physically in her life. He was on the phone, he was on video chat, and then the money showed up in her bank account and everything was better. So I think that next week, Mike is going to try to end it with her. But like you said, she might try to prolong it, because the longer they're in a relationship, the more things that she will receive. So we're just going to have to see if Mike is willing to cut this off, cut it off and move on. All right, so let's talk about Ben and Mahogany. So last night, Ben has been in Peru for 3 days. This hit me last night. It's only been 3 days. So the fake apartment, her not showing up to the airport, meeting her friends for ice cream. This is all within 3 days. Like at least Mike's trip and Gino's trip was 2 weeks. This has just been 3 eye-opening, red flag-filled days.
That means that yesterday for him in the show was his like long ass taxi ride.
Yes. Just yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Because he said on the beginning of his scene, this is my 3rd day in Peru. And I thought, holy crap. So it's only been 3 days. So sitting in the restaurant and all of this stuff. So this is insane. The fact that he's still there and hasn't run is just insane. And he meets with Mahogany's friends, Elizabeth and Angie, and they're both surprised that he's so old. I don't want to say old. He's so mature because they're like, this guy is like our parents' ages. And it's very interesting that Mahogany's talking to him. And then Ben breaks the ice and says, oh, well, what do you guys think about me being her boyfriend? And apparently no one thought that he was her boyfriend but him, including Mahogany. And he's learning that right then and there, right on the spot as well. And I'm kind of team Mahogany to an extent, because when you're talking to someone that you've never met through text messages, and they didn't even video chat, so we're just talking text messages. What we said in text messages is not going to translate to real life.
Yeah.
If I say I love you in text messages and then I meet you in real life, I might not love you because I don't really know you. So I kind of understand what her side of it is, because talking about getting married, talking about having kids is talking. It's not a physical, commitment that you've made with someone that you have spent time with. People on the internet aren't really real until they're real. They're not really physically in your life until they are. So I think that Ben has misinterpreted, and keep in mind, this is a 90-day relationship. They've only known each other for 90 days. So for him to have gone there thinking that they're going to get engaged, get married, and have kids, it's literally insane.
And we find out this week that he's done stuff like this before. He had another relationship with a 27-year-old that he couldn't handle. And so, yes, there's all the stuff about, is Mahogany an actor and are her friends, and is everything about Mahogany fake? And yeah, we can talk about that. And we can talk about like her haircut and whatever. But at the same time, Ben is a grown man with grown children.
Yes.
Who has a track record of doing stuff like this and is sitting here in another country saying all signs point to me like leaving the country, but he still is there, still doing this stuff, still doing the same thing, still it's his track record that is so frustrating.
It is. He doesn't give up, and he's very committed, because he said, oh, I'm so committed to making this work. He's like, oh, I should just get on the next thing smoking, and I should try to make this work. And then he plans a trip. He plans a trip for them to go out, and he wants to get her to know her better. So on this trip, they go on a dune buggy ride. And the dune buggy ride takes them to this picnic, like in the desert, which is really cool, really nice. I don't know if I want to eat in the desert with sand blowing in my face and my mouth, but whatever. So it was cool. And it actually backfires because Mahogany takes this time to question his past relationships and his family. And he's like, well, you have family, you have children, you have an ex-wife, you have an ex-fiance, and you've also dated, women my age before. And she's like, you always made it seem like you were perfect. The relationship didn't work. You blamed it on your church. You blamed it on all these different things. And she's learning maybe you do have some fault in this, in the things that have taken place, and you just didn't tell me, which is ironic because she took him to a completely fake apartment the day before. So it's almost like throwing stones at a glass house at this point. They're both kind of taking shots at each other when they don't really have the right to do so to either.
We'll have to say, with her fake life and her fake pictures and her fake everything, I still stood up in class. She called out Ben for saying, you keep blaming everyone else and you're taking no responsibility. I was like, yes.
We met Ben's ex-wife and his family in that second scene that they did, I could see that there was fault on Ben's side, and we could see it from his children, and we could see it from his ex-wife. There was no perfect man sitting across from them. The look on his daughter's face when he told her about Mahogany and showed that picture, she was like, oh, here we go again. We knew that he had fault in that situation. And for some reason, Mahogany keeps calling him back. She keeps showing up. And for me, I feel like she fulfilled her duty by showing up and showing that she was real. But how long is she going to keep this going is what my question is. Because she clearly doesn't want a relationship with him. So it's making me wonder how long this is going to keep going.
I think as long as the producers are there, she's going to keep going. And I don't mean to say that as in she is only there for the money and the fame. I just think that she has a camera in her face, and as long as that camera's in her face, she's still going to go, and she's still going to go with the promise, because it's a real thing. The camera being in the face, not the relationship.
Well, national TV makes people do weird things, you know. It increases your followers and increases your notoriety, and maybe she's looking at it as, I'll ride the train to the end of the station, you know, as long as the train is moving, I'll stay on it. But Ben believes that this is real, and I think that's the most puzzling part, because he's had every opportunity to see that this is not real.
Yeah, and that makes me scared for what happens when he does finally accept that it's not real.
Yes, he doesn't accept things very well, because he should have, when she left him at the airport and stood him up, he should have accepted it then.
Exactly.
All right, guys, that's it for part 2. I'm George Mossey. This is my co-host, David Baxter. So last night I live tweeted. There was like 14,000 tweets that trended on Twitter last night for the show. So many people were talking about it. Ben and Mahogany, Mike and Amanda were all trending. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thanks for supporting the podcast. Make sure you're live tweeting us every Sunday night, and we'll talk to you guys really soon.